we do have Mr. Fredrick Beuchi in the house, and we also have a doctor in the house, and we'll be talking about breaking the silence on epilepsy in Africa today. So, Mr. Beuchi, let's start with you. Please tell us who you are for our listener who is hearing your voice for the very first time. I know it's not the first time we heard you here.
Yes.
You came last time, we had a conversation, but today maybe we have a new audience kuna watu wanakusikia for the very first time. Could you kindly explain to, just introduce yourself and then wambie unafanya nini and what inspired you to take up this course?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Fredrick Beuchi. I'm an epilepsy awareness ambassador, Africa. I'm also an activist in the whole area of just trying to raise awareness about epilepsy. I'm also a caregiver. I have a sister who is living with epilepsy. She got epilepsy when she was 2 years old, and she's now 20 years old. And it has been a wonderful journey trying to see how she gets better by day. We have achieved a very good control of her seizures, and she's now able to lead or live a very normal life, just like any other person out there.
Yeah.
So based on all that I have shared, that's where the passion for raising awareness came about. And I really want to thank God for this opportunity, because we are here because next month is and November is always an epilepsy awareness month. So we have a lot of activities coming up in November to raise awareness about epilepsy. Yes.
Amazing. And joining Mr. Beuchi today is a medical professional who can help us understand epilepsy from a clinical point of view, and what really happens in the brain and how modern medicine is changing lives. Yeah. So kindly introduce yourself. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Blessed Alubisia. I work in the neurology field of medicine as a neurophysiologist. Basically, we deal with different neurological conditions in which epilepsy is the most common. Where I work with Ubuntu Neurology. We are located at town in Posta. So we deal with neurological conditions. We treat both pediatrics, young adults, as well as adults. We work with the patient through the journey of medication, the different tests. We offer them the counseling, and eventually when they are now seizure-free, from which happens for most of them. So we endeavor to offer these services at a subsidized rate given to our clients, and also just to continue to spread awareness on epilepsy, and also we endeavor to reduce the stigmatization that still occurs with some of our patients. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
You're welcome. Yeah. Karibuni sana, and feel free as we start. Starting with you again, Mr. Fredrick.
Yes.
If maybe you could explain to our listener again, like what was there a personal experience that sparked your passion for this course? I know you've mentioned your sister. You had given us that story previously.
Yeah.
So now I would like you to tell us again.
All right. Yes. Everything about the work that we are doing around epilepsy awareness has been inspired strongly by finding myself being a caregiver, as I have mentioned. And my sister got epilepsy when she experienced malaria, and then it developed into cerebral malaria. So we were able to treat cerebral malaria, but it had already affected her brain. And I think from that is where now it put her at the risk of, getting epilepsy. So it was a whole new thing to us as a family. If you ask me, I would say epilepsy was a condition that I was also hearing people talking about it. And where I come from, in that village where I live, we only knew of one person who had epilepsy. And every time this person would either get an attack or a seizure, I came to know it as a seizure when I also started seeing what my sister was experiencing. Everybody would be so concerned. Surprisingly, also people feared this person because everybody thought, again, because of the nature of how they would get an attack and fall and how they behave, it's not very normal. It didn't really look like it was a medical condition to so many people and even to myself. So we grew up knowing that epilepsy is not really a medical condition. It was just something that would happen to someone either as a bad luck or something like that. So yeah, over time, I think sometimes we develop interest for things when you are directly affected with them. And the closest I had also come to understanding or knowing what epilepsy is all about is after watching a movie, the Jesus movie, where he also heals a person with epilepsy at some point. So you'd ask me, I'll say, like, epilepsy is caused by, demon possession or, a curse from God, perhaps. That was my understanding. But now when we started again experiencing as a family the stigma that was being experienced by the other family of this one person we knew who had epilepsy, then I started feeling like maybe there's something more than just people thinking that epilepsy is caused by demon possession. It wasn't a good feeling, sitting at home and someone telling you that you have done something to your sister and that's why she has that condition, so that you can get riches or things like that. So I felt like maybe if I develop an interest of wanting to know more about this condition, it will help also demystify those myths and misconceptions that now are affecting us as a family directly. I didn't know so much about it. I didn't know even when I talk of it being a medical condition, what it really takes. And I think that's why today we have a doctor to share with us. But information is power, because I went forth to really try and get as much information as I could to not only help my sister, but to also help my community understand what this condition is all about. So that's where my passion for epilepsy awareness began. Yes.
I'm glad, Andy, that you mentioned something about people thinking that maybe if you do something or maybe sin against God, that is when you get certain conditions like that. So my question goes to Dr. Please enlighten us on maybe certain symptoms or maybe signs that when you see in somebody, you definitely know that is this is epilepsy. Because you see, like you said, that they first noticed that she had cerebral malaria and they were able to cure that. So maybe if you could enlighten us on that.
Okay. As he said, epilepsy is a condition. That means it has an array of symptoms and it's different from one person to the other. So from the causes, just as he directly put it, it's not caused by any demonic possessions or being cast or, and that's what most people think. And it's not communicable, given that you'll find that if someone knows someone who has epilepsy, they'll be like, oh no, this person, we can't be around this person. Or you'll tend to see the parents now, if it's a kid, they just hide them somewhere because they're embarrassed about the situation. But this is a condition like no other, like just like every other condition, and it does not mean that if you put the child away or you try to rebuke it, that it will go away. So for the causes, most of the time it's unknown. Someone will just wake up one day, today they're okay, tomorrow they're now having those signs of epilepsy. So most of the time you'll do different tests, but you can't be able to tell. But apart from that, we have also the causes that arise from childbirth. The moment that a child is being born, I know we've heard of cases of children with cerebral palsy where the child did not cry when he or she was being born. So the oxygen did not reach their brain, so that means they have a brain injury. So that is also one of the common causes that eventually the child might or might not have epilepsy. Then apart from that, we also now have other causes, like now say the cerebral malaria. You have malaria, it affects a particular portion of your brain, and that now can lead to you developing epilepsy. Now that's a secondary cause. It was not primarily just epilepsy, but it came from another thing. Then we also have even conditions like meningitis, where there's infection that goes to the brain, so that also alters the change and all that. And it can also be genetic. You can also find that the father had it, the son had it, the grandson had it. So that's also a common cause. But most of the time, today you're okay, tomorrow you just start convulsing. And it can also happen to anyone that has a brain, and that means it can occur to all of us. Even in adulthood, it doesn't just happen in children. So maybe you can be involved in an accident, then you injure a certain part of your brain, then the following day you just start convulsing. So for the signs and symptoms, the most common one that we have is now when, like he was saying, like you just find someone throwing and jerking their upper and lower limbs. And most of the time, the body will be very stiff, the eyes will be open, and when you try calling the person can't stop. It's involuntary. They can't stop what they're doing. Then also we have also other types, especially in children, where we have some which you'll find a child just stares, and whatever you try to do, you try to tap out the child, they would respond. We also have some where someone is walking and they just drop down. They don't jerk or have any stiffening, but they will just drop down. And we also have some instances where now we can have either a combination of both, or you're just holding a cup and the cup suddenly falls. So it's different. It's not the most common one. It's the jerking of the body, and the body becoming stiff with eyes open and foaming from the mouth. It can as well be very scary, and that's the one of the most scariest one. But we have very different types of the seizures.
All right. Is there a way we should or people should respond to someone who is experiencing a seizure?
Yes. So,
and which one is the safest?
Okay, that's a very good question. So for the response of the first aid, generally, if someone is having a convulsion or a seizure, as people put it, the first thing many people will try to do is distract or stop the person from having it, which is wrong. So you should just, if someone, most of the time they'll fall down and start convulsing, or maybe if they're seated, they'll just start convulsing or having a seizure. So the best thing to do is to just make sure the environment is safe. So for example, if it's here, you move the tables, you move the chairs. If it's like in a kitchen, you just remove anything that might make the person hurt themselves, and make sure they're in a safe environment, and don't try to distract. It's an automatic process. After the brain is done being hyperactive, it will just stop on its own. Even if you try to hold the person, it won't stop. So after you've made sure the environment is safe, is when now you can just you put the head elevated just a bit on top of the body, so you can use a pillow or just even your jacket, you can just fold it and put it under the patient's head. Then usually say you put the body in the recovery position, which means that the body is usually on the left side, on the left, because the stomach is located on this, so it will prevent the person, if they start vomiting or removing excretion, it will prevent them from being choked. So you put them on the left side, you take the left palm, the left hand of the patient, and put it under their cheek. Then you just fold the left leg. So that's what we call the recovery position. And you just let it play out on its own. Don't put anything in their mouth, because that means when you put like a spoon, remember this process, the person can't help it. If they continue convulsing, and it can go and choke them, causing further damage. So you just put them in the recovery position and wait for it to play out. Most of the time, by around 5 minutes, if it goes for so long, it will just stop on its own. If you see that it's past 5 minutes and it's still going on, now that's the best time to start and see how you can take this person to hospital. Because once it continues progressing more than 5 minutes, stopping it becomes an issue. So that means that you have to take them to hospital. But if it just happens for less than 5 minutes, especially if the person is already a non-epileptic, you just put them in the recovery position, let it play out. Then after that, you can just try and find out if there are any triggers. Did this person take their medication? Are they having any illness which can again trigger the epilepsy, the seizure from happening.
Okay. Maybe someone will be asking, maybe what is epilepsy in medical terms? Yeah.
Okay. Medically, we define epilepsy as having 2 or more unprovoked seizures, which are more than 24 hours apart. Unprovoked basically means there is no reason that the seizure has happened. Like, for example, he mentioned about the cerebral malaria, that mostly malaria comes with fever, or just any condition that comes with fever. So you'll find that mostly in kids, because their brains are still developing and some of the centers are not fully formed, the body will just, because for you as an adult, if you have a fever, the body can tell itself, no, there's no, we are okay, it's just a fever, it will go down. But now for children, that's one of the way, like, the body is trying to communicate. So in most times that when you have a fever, most children will just start convulsing. So for that, we won't be able to term that as you have now epilepsy. But now if you have 2 or more episodes, you have an episode today, you go, there was no fever, there was no, your glucose is okay, it's not that you are hungry or you had low glucose or that you had low, there are very many things that you can look at, or you didn't have any infection, we will call that unprovoked. Then if it happens again, after 24 hours, we'll also call that unprovoked. So we usually just say if you have 2 or more unprovoked seizures, that is the definition of epilepsy.
Right. Yes. And also a follow-up question, is epilepsy hereditary, or can it happen to anyone at any stage of life?
Yes, it can happen to anyone, though we have the types of epilepsies that are hereditary or genetically inherited, that you'll find that we usually just ask, like, in your family, do you have any other person who has a history of epilepsy? Because there are those which are like genetically predisposed. Though where we are in our country, we are not able to now do the genetic markup and see you have this gene defect. So we have those that are hereditary, but not always, and anyone with a brain can get epilepsy, even when you're 60 years old, when you're 20. So it does not mean it's only for a certain, because people will be shocked that I was diagnosed with epilepsy at 30 years old. So people will be like, no, that's for children. No, anyone with a brain can have epilepsy. That's why we should be more cognizant to everyone.
And just still on genetics, you see some people, maybe when they have certain conditions, they decide, now I'm not going to be siring kids, maybe having kids, because now I'm afraid that I might pass this on to my next generation. So are there any prevention that can be done to maybe when you realize that somebody in your family has this epilepsy?
I don't think that will stop you from having children. It's not like a direct genetic inheritance. For example, we have some conditions, like, let's say, just an example, like sickle cell anemia, where if the father is a carrier and the mother is a carrier, you can have a child having sickle cell, but that's not the same for epilepsy. We just say it can be genetically, and we can't prove it because those tests, 1, they're expensive, 2, they're not in the country. So we get the mother and father, then we say, you're genetically predisposed, so you're definitely going to have a child. No, we can't say that. So for that, because it's not like a direct, because you'll see even in a family that maybe even the mother it has never happened in the family, then the child now comes and have epilepsy. So we can't definitely say that now because you have, don't get children, because so it should not be a worry on that point. And it does not also affect fertility. And it does not mean now that all your kids will be having problems.
If I can also add something on that, because the question is basically touching on, say, the social life aspect of a person living with the epilepsy.
Right.
And what we are trying to do, say, in sessions like this where we have opportunity to raise awareness, is to also, tell the people living with epilepsy and those that are living with them, that is the caregivers or guardians, and like a person living with epilepsy has an opportunity to lead and live a normal life.
Yeah.
Because once everything, as Daktari has said, has been taken into consideration, and they are on proper medication and the seizures are controlled, they can lead a very normal life, including even if they are a child and they need to go to school. We've had experiences where, children with epilepsy, you go to this school, the moment you say this child is bright, but they have this existing condition, then they begin to stigmatize them and not give them the opportunity. The same happens to even people who have gone to school, they have completed secondary school, they have gone to the college. I always get this concern from them because it's a question sometimes you're even asked when you're filling in forms for a job, for example, and you're asked if you have any pre-existing condition, and when they think about them saying that they have epilepsy, they feel like that will be the end of it. Like they will not even look at the qualifications that you have. They will narrow it down to what happens when they are at work and then they get a seizure. And we normally try as much as we can to also talk to the employers, that when someone has been bold enough to tell you that they have epilepsy, for example, it is you to try and create an enabling environment for that person to do what? To be able to work. Otherwise, if you deny them that opportunity and they need the money to buy medicine so that they can manage the condition, you will not have helped them. So there is that part, and then there is what we also call the basic rights for persons living with epilepsy. Like all rights that pertains to any other normal person out there, they also stand a chance to enjoy the same kind of rights. So they can marry, they can get married, they can have children, and that now helps us to change the narrative that when you have this particular condition, and in this case epilepsy, then you are restricted to do something. Although I have a disclaimer on what they can do to some extent, because there are certain careers that you'll also have to consider. Because someone now will ask, so can a person with epilepsy, become a driver, of a public vehicle? We don't have like laws that really talk about at what point a person with epilepsy can, but in other countries like in the US, they talk of if that person has been seizure free for like a year or so, you see, and they are controlled. Because we have people with such conditions who are able to drive. But now there could be restriction when it comes to this is a career path of someone. So they are driving, say, a public vehicle. Now that can be a challenge to that person in regards to what we are referring to. Yes.
You've mentioned that for someone like someone who's been seizure free for like a year, and someone who's lived with it and it's controlled, so that brings the question that are there triggers that trigger seizure?
There are triggers, and I will start by giving an example of my sister. So up to until she was at her teenage years, what would trigger a seizure for her was being so excited, or if something excites her so much. So I wouldn't, for example, buy something that's meant for her and show up and say surprise, like a new dress or something. She would get so excited, and then the next thing will be getting a seizure. And then at some point we also realized that, when she's very angry or she wants to do something, but you are so adamant about not wanting her to do it, then when she gets angry, that also can be a trigger. But as she was growing up at her teenage years, when she started also experiencing her menses, we would always notice, the changes. Maybe Dr. can explain that more. Every time before she would start her menses, and perhaps towards the end as well, it would affect her in one way or another. So that would always be or act as a trigger most of the time. But we have also flashlights. Yeah, flashlights can also be a trigger to people who have the photosensitive kind of epilepsy. That can also be a trigger to some stress, and also maybe use substance abuse or alcohol and things like that can also act as a trigger. So one needs to just understand what are the things that can trigger them to experience a seizure, so that they take control over them. Yeah, I don't know that part of menses, if you can add anything. I've not understood it for quite some time. Sometimes I just feel maybe it's because it does something with their hormonal imbalance or something like that.
Yeah, that's because of the hormones themselves. It's something also not quite really understood, but you'll also see even for the boys who maybe they were diagnosed with epilepsy at a younger age. When they start getting to adolescence, even if they were well controlled, you can find someone just starts having the seizures as well. So most likely it's due to the hormones, because now when you're in your menses, your estrogen, they're not the same. They just have some fluctuations. And now when you're moving from childhood to adolescent, you also have those fluctuations. So yeah, that's usually also a very common picture that we see, especially in adolescents. And there are some who will only have the episodes during the menses, and after their menses, they are now well controlled. Yes.
And this is still to you, Doc. What are the biggest dawns when helping someone with a seizure?
The biggest dawns, like the ones I mentioned, first of all, don't put anything in their mouth at all, because now when you try put something in their mouth, because in that place, a seizure is involuntary, meaning the person is not even aware of what's going on. So when they're now having the seizure, the object you put in the mouth can now go down to the throat, and this person cannot be able to control it. So it might lead to choking, and it may lead to further complications than even the seizure itself. And also, don't try to restrain the person. It does not offer any added value, because it's not like when you try to restrain the person when they are convulsing that it will now stop. Some people also try now giving the medicine that the person was intended to have at that point. It won't have any benefit, because most of the medicines they use for the long term, the ones that they use daily, are not intended to stop the seizure at that point. So if you just notice that the seizure is getting more prolonged, 5 minutes, we are still having a seizure, just rush the person to hospital. There are those specific medicines which they can be given now to stop the seizure at that point. But the biggest thing that many people do is put something in their mouth and restrain, and that should not happen. Yes.
All right. Many Africans living with epilepsy face isolation and discrimination. As Mr. Beuchi had mentioned, that people would say maybe they've done something to gain wealth or something like that. So what do you think? Why do you think stigma still surrounds? It's still deep rooted in these African societies.
Yeah, and when we talk about stigma, I would say. Epilepsy as a condition is highly stigmatized, yes, but for the time that I've been able to interact with different people and getting to understand everything about epilepsy, there has been a gap of information, and that's why we are so adamant about raising awareness. People have not been so informed about what epilepsy is and what epilepsy is, or what causes epilepsy. So that bridge, that gap of information has resulted to people trying to think in the way that they want to view or understand what epilepsy is all about. So based on that, then people have always found a reason to say what epilepsy is and what epilepsy is not. The stigma that so many other people with epilepsy experience also comes from a point of themselves not having accepted the condition that they have epilepsy, or not having a family that is very supportive. I would say, for example, in our family, the bigger part of what has assisted our sister to cope up well, it's because there has been a very good support system from the family. The treatment of epilepsy is not just the medication in itself. It also comes with the moral support that comes from the family. And that always kind of like makes a very big difference. So if we don't experience stigma from the point of our family circle, then it will not be very easy for other people, say like neighbors, because this stigma sometimes comes from a point of even the neighbors noticing that the family doesn't really care so much about, you know, that person who has epilepsy. Yeah. So stigma can be stopped, but it is a two-way.
Yeah.
Yourself, you need to first accept, and then you need to really have a very supportive family for that matter.
All right, Mr. Beuchi, let's talk about your advocacy journey.
Yes.
Having grown up with a sister who has this condition, and especially the misconceptions that surround this condition. You know that we live in a community where people associate these conditions with a lot of misconception, witchcraft, or you sinned against God, there's a punishment. You understand that some parents also hide their kids actually from the community or from people.
Very true.
In fear of not being accepted in their community. So how does this shape your advocacy journey, and did you at some point think that this would reach a continental scale?
Wow. So I would start by saying the feedback or the impact that I have seen by virtue of just taking an opportunity to talk or share my experience as a caregiver with others about epilepsy has really been the driving force of always wanting to take an opportunity available to share a message about epilepsy awareness. And that impact in itself has also opened up my my view or understanding about, you know, epilepsy deeper than just being a condition. I am a counselor by profession, and I do epilepsy counseling. Okay, so that gives you an opportunity also to understand, for example, someone can be given medicine that really helps and manages their epilepsy condition, but then they choose not to take the medicine, either because they have been told you'll have to take this for a lifetime, or you will have to take this for a period of time which appears to be longer than what they imagined or thought about. And now, because every time they need to walk wherever they are going with that medicine, they choose sometimes not to even take. We are just from talking about triggers also. And in my experience, some of the triggers are caused by, you know, someone missing out on their medication or not even taking the medication at the right time. So, you know, you will go to a doctor and the doctor will look at what they have prescribed and they are sure that this one works. But you would not, the patient would not want to tell the doctor that I missed my medication or I haven't taken my medication for a whole week. You see, because now the doctor will be like, okay, how else do I help you? Because I have diagnosed and I've told you this is the medication that works for you.
Yeah.
So when they come to this other end, they are able to open up and they tell me why they have not taken their medicine last week, or they have not been taking their medicine for this period of time. You see, so that has really created a lot of understanding about epilepsy and a way of advocating for it. I'm in the space of caregivers, and that's why we are talking about, actually it's on 1st of November. I've mentioned November is Epilepsy Awareness Month. So 1st of November, we are going to have an epilepsy caregivers baraza.
Yeah.
And we are bringing, and our theme is the caregiver's role in epilepsy awareness. You see, because you could be taking care of a person living with epilepsy, but at the same time, as a caregiver, you have a role to play in terms of raising awareness. People tend to see you as a person who has a lot of information about epilepsy than any other person. So if it's about changing the narrative within the community or within the neighborhood, it is the reach of information that you have also as a caregiver. But we are also looking at what more can a caregiver do apart from just taking care of that person with epilepsy. We are also addressing the challenges that caregivers go through. You know, epilepsy is a long-term kind of condition. And you know, when, even if it's not epilepsy, you must have witnessed either at home or you know a neighbor or a friend that is taking care, say, of a parent who has a long-term illness. It's not very easy. Like, you're waking up each and every day trying to, you know, take care of this person. Like, you lose your life completely, you stop living, and you really have all your attention on this person, and it can be very stressful. So we are bringing them on board also to give them a platform where they can talk, they can share, and look at means and ways of how we can also have a safe space for them to, you know, feel free to air their views without them being judged. You can imagine if a parent says, mi nimechoka ku take care of this child of mine. If they say that loudly in a group, watu wote watasema, sasa huyu wewe ndio mzazi alafu tena unasema umechoka kivipi? But it's true. We get tired at some point. You see. So how can we confidently say that we are also feeling tired, we are losing ourselves without feeling judged? That's why we are having that opportunity to bring them together.
That's amazing. Could you tell us a little bit about epilepsy awareness? About epilepsy awareness in Africa, and do you collaborate with any health institutions or government or any international partners?
Okay, yeah. In the journey of advocacy, of course, as I do it as an individual, it has also opened me up to opportunities where you collaborate with so many other people. Internationally, we have the International League Against Epilepsy. We have International Bureau for Epilepsy. So these are like international organizations that really support or help in the advocacy work. In Africa, or rather in Kenya, we have the National Epilepsy Coordination Committee. I am part of a team of an organization called Foundation for People with Epilepsy. And now we have Afya Research Africa, where Daktari is coming from. They have a chain of the Ubuntu Neurology clinics. Because you cannot work in isolation. I can do a lot of awareness, but then when people now start coming out, where do you take them? You also need to be very sure where you are referring them for medical attention. It is to people who are very professional, so that they don't also get exploited. The other challenge with such conditions like epilepsy, when we know it is a condition that sometimes takes time to manage, there are people who will also sell to you ideas and treatment measures of telling you only take this for 2 days, 3 days, and everything else stops and you continue with your life. But if you have had an experience of being a caregiver, my sister now is 20 years and she started taking medication when she was 6 years. And every other day since she was 6 years, she has been taking medication. And that is what has worked for her in terms of managing, you see. So we know technology is evolving, and sometime in the near future, maybe epilepsy treatment would be something that will happen in a week or days. But at the moment, based with what science has done, the expertise that is there, we know that sometimes it takes a little bit long time. So these international organizations helps us to understand, like we have international epilepsy congresses. Like this year around September, there was the International Epilepsy Congress, which was in Lisbon, Portugal. I attended another one in Dublin, Ireland. This year there was the African Epilepsy Congress, which was in Zambia, which I was also presenting there. What we do in terms of epilepsy awareness. So it's a whole network of collaboration with hospitals and clinics and even experts that are available, and even community-based organizations. I know of support groups even here in Mombasa of patients, and hopefully by the time we have our caregivers baraza, we will be able to again form another support group, say for parents or for caregivers within Mombasa, because that kind of collaboration really helps us to, get to understand the different challenges that come with, what people are facing, taking care of persons with epilepsy. So those are the collaborations that are in place. And of course, not forgetting to mention the radio stations also. Because if it wasn't for such opportunities where we have a chance for an hour to talk about epilepsy, and people listening and calling in to inquire, it would be very difficult for us to start going from household to household to tell them about epilepsy. Yes.
That's amazing.
Okay, thank you so much for that clarification. So, Daktari, I'm a believer, and I hope you're a believer too, and we believe in divine healing. Sometimes when these families have people living in this condition, with these conditions, you'll hear a lot of people, a lot of advices, people telling you, you should take this, your kid, or maybe this, your child to Pastor so-and-so. They'll pray for you because they'll pray for you, and this will just get healed. And some people also maybe advise on traditional ways of curing such kind of conditions. So from a medical from a medical view, do you think epilepsy is curable, or it's just a lifetime condition that somebody has to live with it and just learn how to manage?
Okay, first, when it comes to religion, there is a place for it. I think everyone needs to have something that they believe in, but not now that you'll tell someone that just go to this pastor, they'll pray for you and they get healed. So that might have two sides. There's some people will even go and be told, like, when you take, like the way Beuchi has said, when you take this medicine for 5 days, everything will be over. And the person might actually take the medicine for 5 days and the seizures actually stop. So in your mind, you might be like, oh, this is very correct, or maybe you might go and be prayed for and by some, because there are triggers. There's a people will only have, even they'll just have seizures maybe even twice or thrice, or if it's a child, they don't have it daily. So, and then, you know, your perspective also depends. So maybe you might be saying, he was getting it every day, but now we are at 3 days. So in your mind, you're like, maybe this spray is working. But I will say, like, changing the perspective or your mind thinking is very important, especially for the caregivers, because now, you know, if it's a child, they can't defend themselves. And you see that some parents, because one, they have not accepted it, and maybe they're having external voices from different people, from the community, from the religious leaders, that 1, it could be this, 2, take to this pasta, 3, drink this water, 4, I've had garlic. When you eat garlic every day, it will disappear. So now it does a disservice to the child, because epilepsy, one of the good side of it, once you've gotten medication that is working for you, you keep on taking that medication, you can actually be seizure free. The people who have even taken medications, even they're still taking it, but maybe the last seizure they had was even in 2023. You can be seizure free, you lead a normal life. But now when you've been diagnosed, you're having the episodes, you've been diagnosed with epilepsy, and you don't start your medication again in time, there's also now the other side of the coin. It also has very adverse effects, because remember, with epilepsy, every time a person has a seizure, it causes an irreversible damage. The brain can't heal itself. So every time you have a seizure, you're not taking medication, you just continue having it. That's why now you get the other side effects, now the other adverse effects. Like we've had people who they just started having seizures, then they just go like that. Now they're not walking, now they're not talking. It's like now you're starting zero again, especially with little kids. So I will not use the term curable for epilepsy, but we have, as I've said, we have different types of epilepsies. We have those epilepsies that one has to take medication for their entire life, and given that they take medication, it is well controlled. And we have those epilepsies, especially in young kids, where the patient will start the medicine, observe for 2 years. Once they're seizure free for 2 years on medication, we now start tapering down the medicine, reducing it, and some actually eventually stop taking medication. So it depends on the type of epilepsy. So we wouldn't just go and tell a patient, yes, we promise you when you take medicine 2 years. No, it depends. That's why now it's also important to continue going for those clinics, continue taking medication until the doctor tells you to stop. Don't just wake up and decide on your own, because maybe this time you were taking only one medicine. It was working for you, but for some reason you stopped. When you come back, you're even now worse. So maybe now you have to be put on 2 medicines. So just when you just continue with the doctor's instruction, and it also saves you even a lot of things in the near end. So I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't use the term curable, but it's very manageable.
Right. Yes. Amazing. Do you think African governments are doing enough to prioritize epilepsy care and medication in the medication access?
I think they could do more. Especially when it comes to the medication bit, because as literature progresses, we have medicines that were good maybe in 2000, but every day people are doing research. So we now found we were using this medicine, but this one is actually better, has lesser side effects. But you'll find now the cost of the medications are quite high, and also accessibility. So maybe if you've been diagnosed and try to look for this medicine in a public hospital, you might not get it. So maybe now, I think in that front, especially in dealing with medicines themselves, they could actually do better. And also support in terms of the tests, putting more specialists in the public hospitals and all that. I think in that aspect, they could actually do better. And even in promoting the advocacy programs, because we know there's some things everyone knows about that even the government takes a charge and puts itself out there. But when it comes to epilepsy, many people are actually affected, because something like diabetes, everyone knows about diabetes, and everyone knows even how to manage it or to avoid. But many people have epilepsy, but you'll find many people don't know about it. Even when you go to hospitals, you'll find a specific clinic for diabetes clinics, but there's no specific now this is just an epilepsy clinic now. So I think they could also put more on that front, especially when it comes to advocacy, because there are many people who have it, but they don't know how to term it. So if they can be hearing it in the radio stations, in the televisions, that this is what might be happening to you, to your child, they might actually approach it better and now prevent the adverse effects of not getting treatment early enough. So in that point, they could actually do better. Yes.
Amazing. Mr. Beuchi, as we conclude, are there any upcoming awareness events or walks or initiatives our listeners can take part in?
Oh yeah, they are. And maybe before I mention that, I can add something on what Dr. Rea said.
Yeah.
When you talk about governments, it's more of a question of policy. And I have just mentioned the National Epilepsy Coordination Committee. It is, I would say, an organization or institution that really is helping to amplify, what can be done with the government, especially in Kenya, in terms of the gaps that are there for treatment and even experts that are supposed to be available. Epilepsy is, apart from it being recognized as a disability, it is also under the non-communicable diseases. We know most of the non-communicable diseases as cancer, diabetes, but you see, the days where we celebrate, like cancer days, you need not to be told, because they have been amplified.
Yeah.
And that amplification also has happened because also of the budget that goes into research and treatment and things like that. But now you realize for epilepsy, either it's because of lack of also data or statistics that are there for persons living with epilepsy, because you see the governments also work with numbers. If we need this amount of medicine to be stocked in our hospitals, it would definitely, be reflected also by what need is there. So perhaps a lot needs to be put in when it comes to research, so that the statistics can also be clear. About the events coming up, one of the events, as I've mentioned, it's 1st of November. It will be the Epilepsy Caregivers Baraza, which will be happening here in Mombasa. And for anyone perhaps who wants to, inquire or book to come in, if you allow me, I can mention the numbers.
Yes.
They can call in. You can either call 0729 747 026. That's my number. Or you can call 07 19 53 55 54. 0729 747 026 or 0719 53 55 54. If you have any inquiries about how you can attend or be part of the event that we are having. And then when we get into November, in Nairobi, we will have the Nairobi Epilepsy Run, which will be on 29th of November. And in between the month of November, we will also have so many other small and major events that, will be all about raising awareness for epilepsy. And we are looking forward to even next year. We only have a month or two to next year.
Yeah.
Next year in Mombasa, we will be hosting the Epilepsy Awareness Festival. It will be a 3-day event, and it will bring so many other stakeholders that are dealing with epilepsy care, epilepsy awareness and management. So there's a lot happening when it comes to epilepsy awareness, care and management. And I can only ask people to be vigilant about what will be happening also on social media. Social media pages they can check out at Fredrick Beuchi. They can also visit the Afya Research Africa page and get more information there. Angaza, Kifafa na Beuchi, those are just some of the platforms where we post or share a lot of information about epilepsy and upcoming events. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beuchi. Thank you for joining us today for this incredible work you're doing. And wish you all the best in your mission to make Africa more understanding and inclusive and compassionate about this epilepsy journey. And thank you, Daktari, also for coming through and helping us understand in detail about the whole epilepsy and how the people should respond to it and all that. Karibuni sana.
Asante sana.
Next time you can still come through having in mind that November is Epilepsy Awareness Month.
Yes.
You can come through, maybe you can bring your sister or maybe someone else.
Okay.
You can come, maybe we can hear their story or how.
A caregiver, perhaps.
Yes, or a caregiver.
Once we have, I think, the baraza.
Yes.
Those that will be willing to share. Because the epilepsy story is very different and dynamic from different people.
Right.
You're listening to Blue Radio, bringing the vibe.